Now, this is the next in a series that we've been running, which essentially is building a live project. So a project that somebody has posted on Upwork and is prepared to pay money for. So when we talk about making money through AI or making money through automation, this is what we're talking about. So please let me know if you can't hear or if you're struggling with anything. Okay. Okay, I think I'm okay. And if you can see my screen, just send me a thumbs up, and that should be good. Okay, so last week we looked through monitoring of the email inbox. So the requirement from the post was that we build a refund request workflow, and the source of the refunds would be through email. So they expect that the automation would monitor the Gmail account that they use for handling refunds. So last week we built something that would monitor the email inbox, the Gmail inbox, and is looking for emails that have the subject refund request form. And we showed how that worked last week, and that went through swimmingly, so we're happy with that. And then once that information is pulled out of the email, the content or the body of the email is then passed to an LLM to extract all of the key fields. And those key fields are then used to determine if a refund is valid or the refund request is valid or should be declined. And as part of that whole workflow, we built another access or another connection to a large language model, which would assess the reason for the refund and all of the circumstances around it, compare it to the refund policy, and then determine if it should be approved, declined, or partially approved or conditionally approved. So we built all that out, and that worked last week. Now we didn't actually get to this third one, but is the next thing in the line of what we are building. Now in today's session, it's quite in depth in the sense that most of what we've built up to now uses your standard AI and workflows, your typical AI workflow tools or automation tools. This one now is integrating with Slack. So Slack is a communication tool like Teams or Messenger, but Slack tends to be used by organizations for handling a lot of the internal comms between their teams and amongst themselves. So we'll have a look at what Slack typically would appear like, and we'll start to look at the three things, not the three things, but these action buttons within Slack. So these action buttons within Slack are actually the key part of what we need to implement today. So if we're deploying this, we've done all of the extractions of the emails, extraction of the content. Now the next stage says that they want the email content to be sent to a Slack channel. So Slack consists of different channels, and I'll show you what that looks like in a sec. So firstly, if we go back to the n8n, which is the workflow that I built last week, where is it here? Is it refund request? Created refund request workflow, that is this one. So n8n is the robotic process automation platform that we are using for this. And why n8n? n8n is, in this case, is self-hosted. So a lot of the tests we're running are just running off of my test environment. We're not consuming operations. You could do this same thing with something like Make, but the request by the person who posted the job was to use n8n. So we stick with n8n. The bits I explained up to this point were the Gmail trigger, which then looks at your email and then extracts the fields from the email. Within the email, you'd have the person who's requesting the refund and all the reasons. Then we evaluate the email to say, okay, is this email a valid email? Is the refund, not the email, is the refund request valid? Should we approve, decline? And then the final step, which is also using AI, is to generate the email that will be sent back to the requester. Now, the very next stage, which is what the job requested, is we need to send a message to the Slack channel. And that message in the Slack channel is the bit that is a bit more complicated, because in the request, or the job request, it says it needs action buttons. Now, there are multiple ways that action buttons can be set up. If we have a look at my Slack setup, so this is roughly like a test setup that I've got here. So they mentioned Slack channel. When you subscribe to Slack, there are some you have some functionalities that you can use on the free tier, and then if you want to use more than just one person, one seat, then you start paying. And I think there are certain things you'd have to pay for, even as a solo operator. So to create a Slack channel, in here you just click on the channels, you go to create, and then create channel. And then when you click create channel, it takes you through this process, this workflow, which it's fairly straightforward. In my case, I just selected blank channel. I didn't try to create a channel based off of these other templates. You just go next, and then you give it a name. You can say it's AI test, and then it'll just create it, and then click create, and then suddenly you have a channel here, which first thing we'll say is add some people to it. So we'll skip that. So there it is, AI test channel. Now that channel now exists, and if you want to delete the channel, there's a whole rigmarole of doing that. I think you actually have to subscribe to delete the channel, but we'll leave this here for now. The channel that we need for today's exercise is the refund requests. Now, if you want to then create something that looks like what we've got on here, so this was me doing a test before this session, just to see the action buttons. So the action buttons that are referred to in the job, things like here where you've got approve, deny, and edit. Now, to be able to do that, you need to use certain aspects of Slack that we'll go through right now, and that's what we'll concentrate on today, and not go beyond that, because then it will start to take a bit too long. Now, once you're on Slack and you've got the channel, typically you'd want to message people based on those channels, and you can add people to the different channels, and any message you send would go to, it's almost like a group, so go to everyone as a member. Now, if you want to now give people the ability to use the action buttons, so these buttons here, so click approve, deny, and edit, which is what the job spec said, they need to be able to approve, deny, or edit. We're concentrating on these action buttons. How do we do it? So the first thing you need to do is you need to create an app. So this is an application within Slack. So how do you do that? So here's something I prepared earlier. Where's the list? Okay, so we create a Slack app. And to create a Slack app, you need to go to this URL, this api.slack.com, and then just paste that in the chat. Okay, so where does that take us? Go to api.slack.com here. So if we go into here, let's go from the beginning so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so am I logged in? My apps. So unlock your productive Slack platform. So if I click get started, the whole idea here is to create the app. So let me go in there. This is just showing me the docs. Okay, let's go to the Slack platform. Okay. So within the api.slack.com, if I go to your apps, then let me just show you that again. So top right here, this is one way to get to where you need to be for creating the app. So click on your apps here, and then within this page you have the option to create a new app. Okay, so whilst that's spinning, do I need to agree to this before it works? Okay, so create new app. So there's also the concept of workspaces. In my case, I have the one workspace, which your app configuration token is down about tokens. Not sure why it's not allowing me to create a new app. But suffice to say that I already have this app I've created. If you have Slack, which I doubt you have at the moment, come on. Right, so when you go into the create your own app, you end up with a screen like this, where you then have your app ID, your client ID for the app. So this is one I created earlier today. You can see the date is on there, 16. So I'm not sure why it's not letting me create another. Wonder if it's a licensing thing. So you have your client ID, your client secret, a verification token. So I'm not using this, and I'll regenerate it anyway because it should be private. So when you go to create the app, you're then required to enable some of these steps. So app level tokens, and then the display information. You have to provide a description, and certainly you have to provide a background color for the app, otherwise it won't let you save it. And then once you've done all that, it then gives you the option to save your changes, and then that's it, you have your app ready. So that's the first aspect to what we have to do. And then there's a couple of other things that you have to configure within the app settings. So one of them is you need to go to interactivity and shortcuts. And then within the interactivity and shortcuts, you'd have to put a request URL. So this request URL is the URL to the webhook that needs to be triggered each time any one of those actions is clicked. So as you've got approve, deny, and edit, when you click approve, it will then send a webhook request to whichever URL you put in here. So in my case, this is the URL that will get triggered when it's running. So that's one, and then you have to make sure that you turn that on. So that's firstly to make sure that something receives a request when you click a button. The other thing that you'd also need to touch on would be within the OAuth and permissions place. Now, within the OAuth and permissions, you'd need to, I think these tokens appear just by the fact that you've created the app. But if not, there'll be a button here for you to generate these tokens. So you do generate those. And then it gives different levels of access to different aspects of the application. So I would have to change all of these things after the recording. And then the redirect URL. This redirect URL is very important because when the n8n, which is the automation, tries to authenticate itself with your app, it needs to provide something called a callback URL, and that callback URL must match what's in here. So when you're creating the webhook, when you're creating the authentication piece, you have to make sure that you capture the callback URL and then paste it in here. If you do not have it in here and you're using the OAuth to authenticate, it will tell you that the callback URL has failed, is expecting X. So you can just copy whatever it says it was expecting and just put that in here, and then save the URLs. Make sure you save the URLs, otherwise you will not be able to, it will not register that that's the callback URL. So the callback URL is essentially when you're authenticating the user goes across to Slack. Slack then says, okay, I recognize this person, but it needs to know where to send the request back. It's like you go to an app, it then says, yes, you are definitely X person, and then it sends you back, it redirects you back to a particular URL, which is a callback URL, and you have to specify that. In terms of scopes, your scope must include chat write. So that means it's able to write to the Slack page. And that's mainly it for this page. So you've got your authentication, you've got the redirect URL, you've got the interactivity all set, and then you are good to go. So if we look at the basic information again, so that's it really for the creation of the app. That's all you need to do on here. Okay, so once you've done all that, you have the authentication, you have n8n now talking to Slack. How do you get n8n to talk to Slack? When you add the Slack step, if you don't already have something, so one way to add the Slack step is to click the plus at the end of what we've built already. Then it'll pull out this section on the right hand side, and if we go Slack, click on Slack, and then within here you have all the different options of things that you can do, right? And let's say in my case it's send a message. So let's click send a message. When I select send a message, it then brings up the screen here where you have to configure the Slack account. In this case, I already have the Slack account configured, so it's not, I don't need to do it now. But if you wanted to, one thing you could do is, if I just edit this, you come up to a screen like here, you notice that this client ID matches a client ID on the other page, and then the client secret is a secret that you copy from the other page across to here. It's not shown by default, but you need to click show for it to appear, so that, and that's a security thing. And if I forget to fix it, then there's a bit of protection there. Also, note that the callback URL, this is the URL that goes in the Slack OAuth permissions page as well. So here you just define all the things that you want to do. So in my case, the resource is a message. I want to send the message. That's the operation I want to do. Not search or get permalink. Send a message, and then send message to. Here we're saying the channel, right? So we want to send a message to the channel. You also have the option to send a message to a user. We'll send it to the channel. So this channel, and then the next box then gives us the option to list the channels. So in our case, we've got refund requests. So that's a channel we created earlier. Or if you want to use the test one that we created earlier, what did I call it? AI test channel. But it's refund request channel for this particular job. And then the message type. The message type here is very, very important for what we're trying to do. If you want to send just a basic message, then you can select this first one and just say simple text message, and then you just type whatever it is that you want to type in here, or you get it from the previous runs, which is what we do in this case. We're not typing the text, we're just dragging it from one of the previous nodes. So in this case, why I say it's very important is that if you want to use action buttons, so let's go back to the job spec. He said here, the first level review. So the first set of people that will review the messages from the OpenAI stages would be people that are members of this refund requests channel. So it said the Slack message includes extracted refund data. So that's the data from the original email. Attachments, in our case, we haven't downloaded attachments from emails. We might look at that a bit later. So there are no attachments in this case. And then the drafted response email from OpenAI. So the OpenAI stage that drafts the email is the step just before the Slack. And then it says action buttons. The action buttons, to have action buttons, you can't send a standard message. You have to send something that is called blocks. So if edit is selected, right? So you've got three options: approve, deny, or edit. If edit is selected, the manager adds internal notes / comments. And then the notes are passed back to OpenAI, which regenerates the email. and then the updated package is sent to a second level review. Okay, so that second level review we're not going to look at today, just because of time. We'll pick that up next week. But in order to generate action buttons like we've got here, right? Your messages would normally appear without any action buttons. So this is a standard text message. To have a message that has action buttons, you need to create something called blocks. And those blocks, there's an endpoint for the blocks, or there's a page where you can create blocks or test blocks. And this is the path to it. So Slack provides something called a block kit builder. So it's essentially a page where you can start to sample what the block messages will look like. So in my case, I've come in here. When you come to this page, by default, it would have a sample block already created. So let's see if that would appear for us here. I don't want to change this because this is what I was playing with earlier. So let's go here. So it's loading. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat. Okay, so by default, when you go to this block kit builder, I'm going to put that in the chat, the URL as well. So the block kit builder comes up with this really lovely looking set of messages, just to give you an idea as to the things that you can create or generate by yourself. Now, how does this help us? Now, here you can say, once it appears, okay, this is not really what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build something that has 3 buttons and would have an input box. So what do we do? So let's clear the blocks. So we've cleared everything. So then let's start building. One of the first things I would want to add, and you may want to do this yourself as well, is I'd want to print the email message. So the idea for this session is to get the people within the Slack channel to review the email that OpenAI generated for us. So the first thing I'd want to do is have a plain text section, and within this plain text section, I want to put the emails the email that was generated by OpenAI. So in here, I'm just going to put a placeholder and just say email from OpenAI. Okay, so that's the variable. So this is how you define variables in n8n, and the idea is that when we copy these blocks and move them to n8n, where we'll be sending the block messages, this will be replaced with the actual content from the previous steps. Okay, so that's the first thing. So we now know when the message arrives, we want to see the actual email, and then after the email has been viewed, we have an input box. So what I want to do is add a divider. Where dividers, there's so many actions you can do, but just stay with the requirement for this task. So the next thing is a divider. So boom. So these blocks are the blocks of different things that you put together in order to generate the message that we see in the Slack UI. So you now have a divider. So that means the message appears at the top, then you have a divider, then you have the input box, so which would be where the person reviewing the email will put any comments if they've got any comments. So the way I've done it is you'd have a text box. I think I actually put a markdown text box, but you can put a plain text. So text box. So in this text box, you're putting things like that's where the actual message will go. Sorry, this is where the person reviewing the email will put their text. So let's see. So let's clear this out, just so that it's not confusing. Because it's marked down, you can put URLs and really almost rich text. So what's this? Add text here. Yeah. So this is where they'll put their text. Now, the next thing is you've reviewed the email. There's a demarcation between the email and your input area where you put in your text. And then we now start to look at the action buttons that the job spec said. Now, what do we add next? We then have to add buttons. So the buttons are in the action area. Where's the action area? Okay, you've got here the actions area. So here we've got a button. Yeah, so we wanted 3 buttons. So if we do 3 buttons, look, we've got 3 separate buttons. Okay, now do we want it to be this way, stacked vertically? For me, I don't think that looks nice. And if you can see what I've created, they're all next to each other with emote icons and stuff. So to get them to stack next to each other, the way to do that is to copy the block from the element section. That's what I did, and then append it to the previous one. So what's happening here? Okay, so now let's remove this action. Okay, so what's it complaining about? So here it would give you an error message, right? So for some reason it doesn't like the actions to be the same, the action ID. So let's change that, and let's call this, I've named these the actual action that the button will do. So in this case I said approve. Right, so once you fix any errors, it then starts to appear next to each other as you want it. So deny, and the third one, which was edit, we'll just again copy the text from here, and then we'll just go in here. Oops. Yeah, just keep an eye on the automatic formatting that takes place. So let's fix this red. So this red button here will tell you that there's a problem. So fix that. Okay, so here the third one is edit. All these values are saying click me 1 2 3, click me 1 2 3. So let's change it to click approve. In this case, click deny and click edit. Okay, so what do we have here? We now have a block with the message, the email message from OpenAI, a divider, and an input box where you can put your text in, your edits, and then the action buttons at the bottom. So what then happens is within n8n, you have this section here where you can put blocks, right? So if you recall, we selected send a message, and then message type is blocks, right? If you select blocks, you can then take the design that you came up with here, and then just copy it into your n8n. Yeah, we selected blocks, go on blocks, and then you just paste it in here. Okay, now it's complaining about this bit here, which it should, because the variable doesn't exist, but this is something we knew would want to replace. So in here, what you then do is you go to the email generated AI stage and you just drag the content from there into the text space here, and then that's it. So once you've done that, you're then able to send messages that way. So let's have a look at one I create the one I built earlier, because we're not going to have two 2 steps for sending messages. So this is the one I built. And if we look at the blocks, so you can see the markdown just is the actual email message coming through, and then you've got the input. This is where the person reviewing will put the message that they want to send, and then the final one is the action buttons. Okay, now what does this look like? We have to run the entire let's run the entire workflow, and hopefully it should just go through fine. I haven't sent any new emails, but hopefully we'll pick something up, and we should get a message in Slack once that's done. How would we know if we have a message? Let me just put some free text here to see. Okay, so if it comes in, it should come in after these lines, hash lines. Okay, boom, let's see. It's the first time I'm running it in this way. So, okay, seems to have found an email. Must be the email I used last week that it's using. So it's extracting the fields, right? So let's see how long that takes. Okay, it's finished extracting the fields. It's done the refund evaluator. It's got the email generator now. So it's producing an email, and then boom, it's sent. It says it sent a message, and then there you go. So after those lines, you can see the emails here, and then you've got the action buttons. Now, what do we do with the action buttons? I did say we wouldn't look at the action buttons today. We'll pick up the action buttons and how we handle the action buttons during our next exercise. I didn't think we'll get here so quickly, but hey, we'll deal with this aspect next week, and maybe we'll go on to some other points. But the other thing to note, if you are building this yourself, is that when the email generator generates its email, it looks something like this. You've got subject, your refund request, right? You can see these \n's that are on here. Let me just highlight them. Those are new line characters. Now, if you send this through as part of the block will fail. It will fail because those new lines are not part of what is expected or part of the standard within a JSON value field. So on the right hand side is an example of what the JSON value field looks like. So on the right hand side, you've got name, JSON, blah, blah, blah. But if you had new lines, then all of these messages would be over multiple lines, and that causes the request to fail. So the way I'm working around that is I strip out all of the new lines. So here I'm using a JavaScript a method to strip out the new lines and \r/n, and all of those for every part of the file within the email string gets removed. The downside to this is, of course, when the email arrives, the person reviewing it will see it in this format. So this is where we have to come up with something that perhaps isn't so difficult to read. It might be the case that we decide to send the message more than once, so that the first time it goes through, it comes like this. So this is one I sent without stripping out the \n's, but I couldn't send that as part of a block. I had to send this as part of a standard simple message. So it might be that we decide, okay, we send the email the way it's going to look, and then send a separate message in this way with all the \n's stripped out on new lines, so you're just reading it exactly how it's going to be. Or I might find a way to still send it with the spaces and send them such that it still appears as new lines. I might look at the markdown and see if there's something I can do there. But otherwise, the email is here. It might just be a case of informing the people reviewing this that this is how the email is going to appear. So just read it as though it's a normal email. So this is what they'll see in their Slack. Now, this is demonstrating how organizations are using the messaging platforms or the messaging systems to run their businesses and remain productive. Because Slack, for some organizations, is like Teams that you have, and Teams or Slack is usually always open. Emails don't tend to be open all the time, but Slack, everyone's on there. Your contractors are on there. All your suppliers are on there, often within the right channels. So once this goes in, they don't have to go and read an email or wait till an email arrives. It's all in here. They respond, and then by clicking these action buttons, certain things happen. So let me show you an example. One of the workflows is to capture this message when it comes in. So let's go to the workflow for this. So go into overview and then go to refund request webhook. So this is the webhook that we configured within the Slack area. So if I just set this to run, right? And then I click approve. So see here, it's waiting for something to happen. So if I click approve, okay, so approve has gone. Right, suddenly it says it's got one item. Now let's look at the item that came in. So click that to open. Okay, so this is what the payload looks like coming back from Slack. Right, so you can see body payload, and then you can see in here the actions. They are approved. Right, that's it here. So I know it's not so easy to see. Let's have a look at the other step that I created, the edit fields raw. Okay, this makes it slightly easier to see. So this is still the same payload from Slack, but it's coming here. It's in JSON mode. So this is the spelling of the JSON, not JASON, but JSON mode, and it's showing everything that the Slack bot sent back. Okay, so what it sent back was here in terms of actions is saying approve, right? So what we'll then do next week is, okay, if it's approved, what do we do? If it's denied, what do we do? If it's an edit, what do we do? So all those rules have to be specified and defined. So come next week, I think we'll stop here, but come next week, we'll then look at what happens. So the first one is approved, so that's why you've got one item there. Then you have deny. What do we do when something is denied? And then the third thing is if there's an edit. Now what the job spec says is if there's an edit, we need to send this back to OpenAI for OpenAI to then regenerate the email. And then when the response comes back, it then sends it to another channel. We'll look at those next week. So thank you so much for joining me today. It has been a pleasure. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and send them. If you want a copy of this blueprint and everything I've built here, do let me know and I'll put them all together for you to use. But until then, thank you ever so much for joining me today, and keep building. Let's make something creative happen. Okay, question. Thanks, John. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, everyone. You have a good evening, and see you next time. Thank you.